What's going on, fellow investigators? Special Agent Spooky Clutter here. And tonight the trailer for the highly anticipated Halloween Kills was just released, and wow, this trailer is jam-packed with some very exciting scenes. But before we break it down, let's watch the trailer.
My grandmother was right. The boogeyman was real.
It's over.
We can't hurt anyone ever again.
No one told you.
Told me what?
Somebody in there?
Michael Myers is alive.
Stop! You had a knife in your stomach.
You and Allison should not have to keep running. Evil dies tonight.
I'm not just gonna sit and watch another innocent person die.
If you track Michael's victims, that's a straight line to Michael's childhood home.
What do we do?
We fight.
Let's hunt him down.
Michael Myers is flesh and blood. But a man couldn't have survived that fire. The more he kills, the more he transcends.
Run! Go home now!
He's the essence of evil.
Do it! Do it! You want your mask? Come and get it!
I'm coming for you, Michael.
So in the opening shot, we get a recap of the 2018 film's ending, as we see the burning house as well as our three heroines, Laurie, Karen, and Allison. Except now we see Laurie screaming to let it burn, referring to her house because we see the fire trucks passing by. And I gotta say, after everything that she's been through with facing Michael, I don't blame her for being pissed. And then we see Allison holding the bloody knife, which is interesting because we see this knife again later in the trailer. Perhaps it has some significance? Well, I guess we'll see. We then get a series of shots inside Laurie's house with the firefighters inside. One of them falls through the floor and his partner reaches down, telling him to grab his hand, and instead it's Michael's hand he grabs. And wow, this is pretty intense. Obviously, we can assume that Michael kills the guy that falls through the floor, and then he kills the other firefighter, and then grabs his axe, because in the next scene, we have Michael walking out of Laurie's house in a slow motion shot that is amazing. It's one of my favorite shots in the trailer. We see him with the axe in his hand, and we see the firefighters looking on in shock. And I gotta say, the filmmakers are definitely going all out with making him look very intimidating. Add on to that, as he grabs hold of the axe, it's very similar to something Jason Voorhees would do. And then we get a series of brutal shots featuring extreme kills, and it's safe to say that Michael is going to be very brutal in this film. Next up, we get a voiceover from Allison, accompanied by shots of her and Laurie in the hospital. Allison says that Laurie was right, reiterating what she has been telling Allison and her family in the previous movie, and I love how they put the line of "the boogeyman is real" in there as well. And we then see Laurie say that it's over, showing that she thinks Michael's dead. Of course, we all know that he isn't. Afterwards, we see Michael brutally killing a couple in a house, and I find it interesting that some of these stabbing scenes remind me a lot of how intense the killings were in the Rob Zombie films, reiterating once again that Michael is going to be much more aggressive in this film than we've ever seen him before, aside from the Rob Zombie films, of course. Meanwhile, back at the hospital, we see Laurie inject herself with what we can assume to be an adrenaline shot. She tells Karen that her and Allison shouldn't have to keep running and that evil dies tonight. This line reminds me of how Dr. Loomis referred to Michael in the original film. She also pulls out that knife we seen earlier at the beginning of the trailer, so that's interesting. We then see shots of Allison hunting for Michael, and we also get several shots of dead people, some of them sporting the Halloween masks from Season of the Witch, so that's a nice little nod back to another John Carpenter-esque film, and of course we saw those masks in the first film as well, the 2018 film I mean, so that's pretty nice to see. Next up we see Anthony Michael Hall playing as Tommy Doyle, and Tommy has a really stylish baseball bat, which is pretty cool, and it appears that him and Laurie are rounding up a mob to hunt down Michael, which is reminiscent to Halloween 4. Of course, I have a good feeling that it won't end well for him. As the trailer goes on, we see several shots of the mob, and we get a voiceover from Laurie about Michael being flesh and blood, but that a man couldn't have survived that fire. This is reiterating or calling back to what Dr. Loomis said about Michael not being human. And I am curious to see if they're going to have some kind of plot twist about Michael being supernatural, or if they're going to keep it to where he is still a normal guy, he just has like a very high pain tolerance, I suppose. And we also get a familiar face in the return of Nancy Stevens as Marion Chambers. For those of you that don't remember, Marion Chambers was the nurse in the beginning of the first Halloween film, as well as a recreated shot of Michael breaking a car window with her in it, just like in the original film. So that's pretty cool. And adding on to a returning cast, we see Kyle Richards reprising her role as Lindsay Wallace. And as a quick side note, I'm really happy that they got all these old familiar faces to return to the franchise. I always like that old faces return, and it's nice to see where they've been all this time. And so I'm very excited to see what happens in this film with these characters. And after that, we get more shots of Laurie and the mob. Then we cut to seeing Allison's boyfriend Cameron armed with a pistol. Then Michael grabs him, and it looks like he won't be making it out this time. Of course, we were all hoping that Michael would get him after he was being a complete dick to Allison in the last film, so I guess you could say he's finally getting his comeuppance. We then see Allison face off with Michael, and he has what looks like the same knife from earlier, and has it pointed to her throat. She then says, "Do it! Do it!" And it appears someone hits Michael in the back of his head, saving Allison. And we can assume this is Karen because in the next shot we see her with Michael's mask. Karen then taunts Michael to come get his mask back. And I'm going to make a prediction right now that this is probably where we're going to see Karen die. Just because anybody who's touched that mask seems to have a very short lifespan. Next we get shots of the mob, Tommy with his baseball bat, and a final shot of Laurie with a voiceover saying, "I'm coming for you, Michael." So, final thoughts on this trailer. Wow. My excitement level has been peaked with this movie trailer. I'd say that the wait is definitely worthwhile, and I also love the new iteration of the classic Halloween theme that plays. This is all setting up to be a badass film. But let me know what you guys think about the trailer, and if you're excited to see the Shape make a triumphant return to the silver screen. And also make sure to stay tuned here on the C-Files podcast for this and more horror and sci-fi related topics. So, thank you all very much for watching, and until next time, fellow investigators, remember, the entertainment is out there.